right, so coming up next, we're going to have in just 1 second another video interview. So you all met Fernando Salvetti this morning, those of you who were there, and Fernando will be presenting later on in the conference as well. He works for, he started a company called eReal, which is a mixed media education simulation company, among other things, and it's almost hard to put into words exactly what his technology does. It's really, really interesting stuff. I spoke with Fernando a little bit about that in an interview, and we're going to show you this right now. So take a look at this interview with Fernando Salvetti, and then we'll be back live in about 20 minutes. I'm David Guralnick from the ICELW conference in Kaleidoscope Learning, and I'm here with Fernando Salvetti from eReal. And Fernando is a pioneer in the world of virtual reality and mixed media and so many other related worlds, and has done some fascinating work that's useful in education and beyond in mixing technology with the way that people interact. And I'm just delighted to have Fernando here with me today. So Fernando, if we can start, tell me just a little bit about, and for our audience, just a little bit about your work and your product and what you're doing. We can see a little bit in the background as we speak, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Yes, in my background, you can take a look at eReal, that is an enhanced reality environment, sort of mixed reality or hybrid reality, where people may interact with virtual objects as well as with real human beings in real time, both online, remotely, and face-to-face, interacting thanks to proximity sensors that are enabling the tactile interaction. So we are looking at big touch screens, as well as with the gaze or with body gesture. So we can enable sometimes the interaction with virtual objects, swiping or using our hands very far from the wall as well as online. At the same time, we can really touch common walls, level 4, level 5 finish wall, and we can pop up images, avatars, content, 2D, 3D contents, to interact with, to learn from, to share, mainly to co-build knowledge and a common understanding, because at the end we are educators.
Great. Well, this is a fantastic system. Can you tell me a little bit about what the eReal system, how it runs? So how does the whole setup work to run these? So you're running simulations, and you can touch, and you can speak, and you can interact with real and virtual characters. So how does this work, kind of from the standpoint of technology? It's not going to completely run on my laptop, but what do you need to make it run?
It's very easy. A small mid-tower server designed and assembled by us, one or more ultra-short throw projectors when we install within a room, or touch screens when we work remotely, or third option, walls embedded with the sensors in order to track fingers and human gestures. So sometimes we put jointly together to work within the same virtual classroom, people from 3 or 4 different locations, because they are co-building the same virtual objects. So is online work, and first of all is a face-to-face setting, like a cave, the computer-assisted virtual environment, but less expensive, and first of all, very easy compared with the traditional cave environments. Because we are educators, not IT guys, we have to keep a very simple and user-friendly the experience. So computer, projector, sensor, and a lot of instructional design behind, because this is our job.
Exactly. Okay, so that sounds great. So that sort of the less expensive, the simpler version is primarily projectors, and then the sort of higher end versions you add the walls and the touch sensors.
Yeah.
That come accurate. Great. Can you give us some? I know you've had some examples in the medical field and some others where you've put this simulation idea into practice. Can you give us a story or two about a simulation that you've rolled out and what it did and how it worked?
Yeah. For instance, in Boston, within the Harvard Center for Medical Simulation, known worldwide as a CMS, Center for Medical Simulation as an acronym. We are performing labor and delivery programs, as well as we are interacting vocally with surgical checklist and mnemonics in order to perform a simulation in a high fidelity environment, where people, learners, are also surrounded by indoor, sometimes outdoor scenarios. So they have to deal with unexpected situations. They have to face unexpected tasks. They have to try to understand what is happening behind their shoulders. And sometimes they have to face very, very challenging situation. And this is an example. Another is in Ashburn, in Virginia, approximately 30 miles from DC downtown, the George Washington University, the School of Nursing. Again, they are immersing nurses and paramedic learners in order to face a mass triage or other very medical relevant situations within a high fidelity simulation environment. In our opinion, very better than the traditional work around the dummy, the plastic, the patient simulator, because enough a patient simulator, alone a patient simulator is not enough. Other samples from Europe, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, not only in the medical field, also in management and leadership development. For instance, we designed a Leadership 5.0 program under the umbrella of the World Economic Forum and on behalf of the Corporate University of Eni, the Italian oil and gas company, in partnership with Aramco from Saudi Arabia and other three energy big corporations, in order to deliver, or better, to foster a digital mindset for young leaders, people aged less than 40, in need to perform within a real business game, just to learn how to launch cryptocurrency, in order to explore by the flick of their hands infographics made interactive, just to really explore what looks like a car in 2050, or what looks like a plant in 2050, in order to have them really living, let's say, a memorable experience related to fostering their digital mindset outside a traditional classroom. Then we bridge modules using a platform, online learning, and sometimes we deliver in regular classrooms. But in our opinion, immersing people within experiential labs has something that a traditional classroom cannot deliver in the same way.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of designing this kind of system from an educational standpoint, which, as you mentioned before, is absolutely critical? It's one thing to have the technology, and even if it's technology meant for learning by doing, but what are you going to do about it? How do you put people in the right situations so that they learn what they need to be able to do in the right way? So can you talk a little bit about how your processes work and how you look at it from an educational design standpoint?
Yes, need analysis and user centricity as main guidelines means talking to the expected final users, building something like a short movie. So starting by writing a scenario, trying to share with them what makes the difference in between good performance and something that is an average or below the average level performance, in order to try to reach educational and development targets, keeping the final user at the center of the stage. So from the very beginning, we are used to interview the client. The rule is ask questions 70% of your time, provide info not more than 30% of your time. So we very quickly provide a few sentences in order to allow people to figure out what they are expected to live within an real environment. Then we start asking questions about their average daily life or their specific topics or challenges we are working around. And we design step by step, trying to embed the emotion, try to put the designer within the same shoes or to look through the same glasses, like if the designers were the clients. So our instructional design is mainly performing design thinking approach with a strong user centricity. So it's not so different compared with other design processes.
What's the next, once you've had your initial interviews, when do you get to a point where you show people something, where you show something to a client or an audience, and what is that thing as you're sort of progressing from initial concept, but not quite, not at the point where you're building something for real yet?
At the beginning, we show a story. So we really show something like a written small movie. Then when we are ready to stamp, usually we perform ground zero. So the starting point in terms of performance. And in the middle and at the end of the experience, it depends on the length of the experience, but usually there are two milestones, middle and end. We measure behavioral outputs. So at the end, we, as education or teaching team, are able to track progresses or lack of progresses from the ground zero, the first milestone, the second and final milestone. Usually we provide people one by one with a very direct feedback about what they performed. And we provide the client only with a short summary. The client is the company or the organization behind, because there is privacy, because our policy is a closed door policy within an area lab, as well as within a regular training classroom. So people know that with us they can perform freely in order to really hone their own skill and competencies, in order to reach their own results as individual people or persons, better, or as a team, or and, because for instance in Boston sometimes we have a single person performing dialogically with an avatar that is talking from a wall. Other times the avatar is talking from a screen. It is purely e-learning. In our case, it's more interactive because we design all our content using Unity as a graphic engine, and our effort is making a really highly interactive all the content, both delivered online or face-to-face within a real immersive environment. So at the end, and at least, people may really measure ground zero and further milestones reached in terms of performance, behavioral competencies, technical competencies, all joined, all related, because the effort is recreating a high fidelity environment. And in the real world, we do not perform the so-called soft skills and the so-called technical skills. We perform highly sophisticated behaviors, professional behaviors. We try to take screenshots and photographs about real behaviors that have different and several components: technical, behavioral, cognitive, metacognitive. And we try to provide feedback, enabling people to understand all those aspects that are from the same performance, stage by stage, from grade zero to the end of the real experience. For the commitment, for the client, for the corporations, the organization we are working with. We provide only short, very short summaries with the average trend of the teams that perform, not about individual people, because we are trainers and educators, and mainly in Western Europe, has to be guaranteed privacy. Sometimes in the US or in other countries, there is a melt in between training and evaluation. Usually it's not the same in Western Europe.
Anything you kind of want to leave us with in terms of the way that you see technology impacting society and education, looking forward, where we might want to see things going in the next few years, as now you can build these fantastic things in a room. What else do you see kind of moving forward, and maybe just a couple minutes on where you see this, where you see things going?
First of all, I'm a philosopher and a lawyer and not an engineer. So I'm not an expert about technology. I'm just performing as a system integrator. What we are foresee, and we means our extended team, 25 people behind the real, is the Internet of Everything. So it's a common trend within the so-called 4.0 society. In our educational setting means embedding sensors within different things, having sensorized objects as well as having sensorized people wearing special clothes embedded with sensors, people wearing special helmets embedded with sensors. And this means in the next 5-10 years, the high chance, let's say, to measure or at least to track gaze, eyes, bodies, human interaction, human positioning around a physical setting, situation, challenging task in a way that we are not used to do within a traditional educational setting. If you think yourself as a trainer within a traditional learning setting, your attention is mainly focused on people, mainly on the verbal performance, sometimes the facial, not verbal performance, a few times the physical setting, where people are positioning themselves, furniture inside, obstacle inside, and so on. Because our cognitive resources are limited. With the Internet of Everything, we are expected to be able to track environments and people. So we are expected to perform pretty easily network analysis, having a deeper or at least a better understanding about how people are positioning themselves. Think a teamwork. How I'm positioning myself physically with the other 2, 3, 4 teammates. How we are positioning ourselves with the patient, if we are talking of a healthcare simulation. This is a trend we are foreseeing. Then let's wait and see. Who knows?
Right. No, you never know, but it sounds very, very promising, and both in terms of understanding interactions with people and understanding interactions with objects and smart objects that are part of the Internet of Things. So there's just so much that we can do as we continue to reimagine the world of education and bring about change. And it's really just the time to do it. And really pleased to see where you were going and where your work is going and headed. And it's really, really interesting work to discuss. Fernando, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. As always, it's been Fernando Salvetti from ICELW in Italy and numerous other countries, really around the world. I think, what are you in 80 countries? Is that actually the right number? 83 countries around the world. And it's really interesting technology. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks once again, Fernando.
My pleasure, David. Thank you so much for the time you devoted me. All the best.